Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the blues of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. Happy Halloween for those of you who celebrate, and happy for all of us as Commanders fans. Good riddance to the month of October. The month of October has been a house of horrors, literally and figuratively for the Commanders. This I liken it to last year's November. If you recall, November was just miserable for us. We started out the month with a win, and then we proceeded to lose the remaining 3 games in the month, and we couldn't get out of the month of November fast enough. I remember talking about flushing November and let's just start anew in the month of December. And then we got hot, turned the page, and we didn't look back the remainder of the season. And the rest is history for last year. I liken October to that of November last year. We started off the month with a win. Rio was saying undefeated October or something of that effect. I was with it. Hashtag, undefeated October, whatever the hashtag he was coming up with. And that quickly was dashed with the loss to Chicago. And we never rebounded from that. Well, we've got a chance to erase all of the ill will that October brought us by starting off the month of November the right way with a win. And look, it doesn't get any bigger than this right here. You have to win this game. There's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts. This is a must-win game because if you don't win the game on Sunday, you're 3-6. You're staring Detroit in the face. 3-7 is not an option for this team. You don't have a chance to turn your season around. And you heard Dan Quinn at his press conference today talk with optimism about guys that are on the mend that could potentially be back. And if you can just hold on, if you can somehow give yourself a chance to have those guys be back in the lineup, you just never know. And I've said, this is the darkest period of our season. This is the portion of our schedule that is the toughest. If you can somehow get through to the other side, and I've been talking about that, you can somehow get through to the other side, get to the Dolphins, get to the Vikings, get to the Giants, right? Denver's going to be tough. But, and again, we aren't in any position right now to look at anybody like food, right? Everyone's looking at us. We're back to square one where we used to be, where we look like food to everyone else, and we're trying to eat as well, and it's just a big mess, right? But at the end of the day, we are better than the Vikings. We are better than the Giants. We are better than the Dolphins. We have a chance to turn this season around, but you cannot fall to 3-7. Because if you lose this game, essentially, this is 2 losses. You're not going to turn around next week and somehow miraculously beat Detroit unless something catastrophic happens to them this week against Minnesota and they come in here and they just don't have anybody, right? Like, that's the only way you beat Detroit next week. Unless you win this game and then all bets are off in the Detroit game. Now you got some momentum and who knows what could happen. But if you lose this game and you fall to 3-6, you're Dunsky. It's over. And again, theoretically speaking, if we are going off of my checklist, my hopium checklist, you don't have to win this game. You can win next week, and it's still going to give you the same effect. I would tell you that winning next week would be more impressive than winning this week, and it would catapult you into a potential win streak, right? You win this week, you lose next week, it breaks your win streak, and you got to start all over again. You got to build that momentum back. So I'd tell you that if you were going to win one of the next 2 games, next week would be the one to win. But again, why not win this week and next week, right? That's like, let's get the win out of the way now so that if it doesn't go well next week, at least you already got that 4th win and you have a chance to get to 5-6 going into the bye, and then you have a chance to do the thing that I said we had to do, which was win 4 straight. You start with Miami, and then you come off the bye, you beat Denver, and then you beat Minnesota, and then you beat the Giants, and then voila, you're 8-6 just like that, and you're right back in the thick of things. I think in the NFC East, again, we don't know what's going to happen with Philadelphia. They could just keep winning, right? But we can't worry about anybody else. We can't worry about Philadelphia. We can't worry about Atlanta. We can't worry about Green Bay. We can't worry about Detroit. We can't worry about all of the teams that we've already played, that have already beaten us, that are in the NFC, that if they finish with a better record than us or tied with us, they own the tiebreaker or any of that stuff. Because if we don't take care of business, all of that is a moot point, which is why I don't waste time talking about other teams. Because if we don't take care of us, it doesn't matter what these other teams are doing. We have to take care of our affairs first in order to make anything else matter. Then we can start looking at what other teams are doing. Then we can start scoreboard watching. Then we can start talking about, well, if this team beats this team and that team beats that team, we got a shot to do this. But we got to start winning games first. And it starts on Sunday night. The championship era threads to the rescue. These jerseys have given us a spark, a boost that did not exist until this weekend. We were searching for some kind of lift, some kind of manufactured extra boost. This fan base is down right now. Like, if this were a normal home game, Battle Blacks, whatever, right? The burgundy uniforms, burgundy on burgundy, burgundy tops, gold bottom. If this was a regular game, you wouldn't have the juice that you have for this Sunday night game. This was perfectly timed for where we are in our season. Similar to last year, that Titans game was exactly what the doctor ordered, fresh off of a 3-game skid. You needed a pick-me-up, and the Titans were the perfect antidote for what was ailing us. I'm not saying that we want the Seahawks. We would much rather be playing a team like Arizona or a team like Cleveland this week or Miami, right? We would much rather be doing that. And again, none of those would be gimmies in the state that we're in right now. But we'd much rather be playing an opponent that we feel like we could handle. Seattle is the better team. But as I've mentioned already, they're very beatable. Sam Darnold is their quarterback, and while he is playing well, he's still Sam Darnold, just like Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is playing very well right now. But at his core, when you strip down everything around him, you strip down the play calling that has been fantastic in Indianapolis, you strip down him to his bare essentials, he's still Daniel Jones. And if you pressure him, he still does Daniel Jones shit. Same thing with Sam Darnold. He's a really good quarterback when you give him time and you give him opportunities to find his receivers and his targets. He will carve you up. He was the number 3 overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft for a reason. He is extremely talented. He's also extremely flawed. This is a very winnable game. And with the championship era threads and that extra juice you're going to get from the crowd and the excitement for Art Monk's number being retired, you got to win this game. Not just for the win. The championship era threads, not just for the win, for the season, for Art. You got to get this done. There's too much history that's going to be in that building on Sunday night. Too many elder statesmen that built this thing of ours that we call the Washington Commanders. The guys that made this organization what it is are going to be in attendance. The crowd is going to be riled up. And this is Seattle. This ain't the Giants or the Eagles or the Cowboys. They're not taking over the stadium. This isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Green Bay Packers. It's the Seattle Seahawks. They'll have a smattering of fans here and there. Very transient area that we live in the DMV. So there will be some Seattle Seahawk transplants here. But for the most part, this will be a dominant Commanders crowd. Probably the last one of the season if you don't win this game. You can't F this up if you're Dan Quinn and company. You got to find a way to win this game. For every reason that I've already named, but above all else, to extend your season past the month of October. Because if you lose this game, you start November with this loss, you're cooked. You can sit here and talk about, well, we had a great week of practice. It doesn't matter. Next week, Detroit doesn't give a shit about your great week of practice. The morale is still up. They are out for revenge. I think next week's game could potentially be a bloodbath. But let's not worry about that right now. You win this game, you could go into next week's game with a ton of momentum, and who knows what could happen. But right now, you got to win this game to make next week's game mean something. And the game after that means something. Because at 7 losses, you're done. You're done. You're done. And for those of you saying, oh, you're done right now, we'll see about that. The hopium is kicking in, man. It's feeling good. And Seattle, they're coming all the way across the country. They don't give a shit about the championship era threads. They're wearing some throwbacks of their own. They don't give a shit about our jerseys. They don't care about the energy in the building. They don't care that we're retiring Art Monk's number. They don't give a shit about none of that. In their minds, we're coming across country and we leaving with something. We got to ensure that that something that they leave with is an L. You got one job to do. And it's not an easy one. But you got to find a way. And I don't know. That's the mantra for the rest of the season. Find a way. Through all the injuries, through all of the, missed practices, all the different lineup changes, all the adversity that has hit this team, nobody cares. No one is shedding a tear for this organization, its fans, or its players. Find a way on Sunday night. Keep our season alive. You put yourself in this position by losing to Chicago. You did this to yourself. The only way to get out of the hole that you've dug yourself is to first put the shovel down and stop digging. Sunday night against the Seahawks, you've got to put the shovel down, stop digging, and start climbing. This is the first step in the road to recovery, to getting out of that hole. You got to put the shovel down and you got to stop digging and you got to start climbing. Here's your opportunity. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible. This isn't last week's game and it's not next week's game. This is doable. So go and do it. And again, do it for the win. Do it for the season. Do it for art. Let's get this win and let's keep hope alive. Inject that hopium into everybody's veins, not just mine. Let's get to in other news, where we heard from DQ today, and we'll talk about what was said at his press conference. Before we get to that, however, we do have the injury reports because we did this show a little bit later on in the evening because of Halloween. I've got little ones, so of course I took them out. Me and my wife took them out trick-or-treating. They had a blast. This was their first time trick-or-treating, believe it or not. So they actually did really well. Hopefully the team takes from my kids and they go out and actually do really well on Sunday, right? So with that said, let's take a look at the injury report for both teams, the final one leading into Sunday night's contest. We'll start with the good guys. And this is an interesting injury report, to say the least. We knew about McLaurin being out. It felt like during the week, Kostiankoff was trending in the right direction until he didn't practice on Thursday. He followed that up with another DNP. He's not ready yet. He is also out of this game. John Bates being questionable kind of came out of nowhere. Ankle injury. He was good on Wednesday. He was full on Thursday. And then all of a sudden he's limited and then he's questionable. I still feel like he's going to play, but we're going to keep our eye on that. Look, this isn't a game where I think we're going to be able to run the football anyway. But you'd still want John Bates available. He does so much for this team: pass protection, run blocking, etc. So you definitely want Bates healthy if at all possible. Johnny Newton, we talked about him because of Joe Witt Jr. He was asked about Johnny Newton and his play this season. He had some good things to say about him. We talked about how well Johnny was playing during the Chiefs, despite dealing with an ankle injury that had him in and out of the lineup in that game. Remember, Johnny had set a physical edge early in the game, had a nice run stop, and then also had a sack, but he effed it up with a bad personal foul penalty for unnecessary roughness, roughing the passer, slamming Patrick Mahomes when he didn't have to. But he's a bigger fixture now on this defense because of the injuries. They've got to do certain things to be able to hold up against the run. He's a big part of that because he's playing defensive end in some of these packages. So hopefully he can go. He was limited on Friday. He's listed as questionable. I think he's going to be able to go. But again, you just never know. DQ sounded very optimistic about both he and Laramie Tunsil, who also practiced on a limited basis for the second consecutive day. So he is questionable. I'm still not sold on Laramie Tunsil starting on Sunday night. I still am of the belief that he's going to need at least a week, similar to Jayden. And so I think they're going to get all the way up to game time, and they're going to ultimately sit him out of this game. Coleman's going to get the start at left tackle, and that's how we're going to have to roll in this game. I could be wrong. I want to be wrong. I want Tunsil out there, but I also don't want to push him if he's not right. And I don't want this to turn into something more than it needs to be. So if he needs a week, I get it. You want all hands on deck that are possible to be on deck because of the magnitude of this game. This is a big one. You don't get this one. And again, it's not, this is why it's not code red, just straight red, because there's life after this game potentially, but then you got to go do what it felt like you weren't able to do in Kansas City. And that's kind of do the improbable. Now, this one's at home against Detroit and, this, that, and the third, but Detroit feels a lot like Kansas City. You're not winning that game right now as it stands. So you want all hands on deck, and I think they want Laramie out there. Just make sure you're making, and I always trust that they're making the right decisions. But just make sure you're doing what's in the best interest of Laramie here so that this doesn't turn into something more than what it already is. And then everybody else is off of the injury report in terms of a status. Jayden Daniels was practicing full all week. We knew he was going to play. That was confirmed today. Matt Gay, I felt like after DQ and company released Matthew Wright on, I believe it was Tuesday, that made me feel like Matt Gay was going to be able to go this week. He was close to going last week. So I felt like another week would be, almost assured that he would be ready for the game on Sunday night. So he's going to be back. Javon Kinlaw, full. I was never worried about him after I saw him trying to go back in the game and they were able to put a harness on his shoulder. We just got to keep an eye on him to make sure that he doesn't re-aggravate it. Hopefully it didn't pop out of the socket or anything like that. And he doesn't have this issue with it popping in and out of the socket. Hopefully he's good moving forward because he's such a big part of what we do on the interior of that defensive line, And then Bobby Wagner is full. There was no doubt that he was playing in this game. And so, again, interesting injury report with the questionables. We'll keep an eye on all three of those to see if those guys can go or not. What's interesting about the ops this week, the Seattle Seahawks, is that their injury report started out very harmless, coming off of a bye. First of all, this is a lot of names. That's the first thing that stuck out to me. I thought this thing was going to shrink exponentially as we got deeper into the week. As each day passed, I thought you'd see some names come off of this thing. They added names to this thing, and this thing got even longer. I think this is every bit of 13, 14 names we're looking at. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 names. I knew it was somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't remember Cooper Kupp being on this thing, earlier in the week. As a matter of fact, he was a full participant on Wednesday, so he wasn't. Then all of a sudden, Thursday, he's got a heel and a hamstring, and then Friday, he doesn't practice, and all of a sudden, he's questionable. I expect him to still play, but that Damn, that happened fast. I mean, that moved pretty rapidly. So, we may catch a break here. Coming out of the bye, I just expected Julian Love to be ready. He didn't practice all week. He's out. Okay, that helps. But like I said, they've got guys that have stepped up in the absence of some of these players, like Okada at the safety position. They're fine. Like, they feel like Okada can do everything that Julian Love brings to the table. So we're not going to get a super advantage there. But Julian Love is a good football player, and he's not going to be in the lineup. Jake Bobo, I feel like he just showed up on the injury report the other day. He wasn't there on Wednesday, clearly. But then, the Achilles popped up. I don't know if he hurt it significantly or not, but he's a solid receiver, not a needle mover by any stretch of the imagination, but just another guy that can get the football to and another guy on special teams. So he's not going to play in this game. Christian Haynes was full all week, and then out of nowhere, pec injury, out. That's a big one. That's a starting offensive lineman. So you're like, what is going on with Seattle here? And then Eric Saubert, big blocking tight end, out of this game. He didn't practice all week, so that's not a surprise. Derek Young, same thing. He didn't practice all week. But it's just interesting to see some of these names crop up on the list. And Cooper Kupp being questionable is a big deal, right? Like, he's not the dynamic receiver he once was, but he's still Cooper Kupp, and he's still capable of hurting you. And if he's not in the lineup, that definitely will help this defense as well. So something to keep an eye on there. This Seattle Seahawks injury report just has been a little bit freaky this week because it seems like it's gotten worse as the week has progressed. Again, that's good news for us, bad news for them. So interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye on Cooper Kupp and see if he is in the lineup in this game or not. All right, so we heard from DQ today. He started off his press conference by giving out the captains, as he customarily does on a Friday. Offensive captain, Zach Ertz. Defensive captain, Marshawn Lattimore. Special teams captain, Percy Butler. So he then went and transitioned into some of the injury updates. He reiterated that Terry was out and added Colston Yankoff to the out list of players in this game. He said Jayden is officially in, as if we didn't already know, but, still had to go ahead and just make that official. And then he talked about another day of practice for Johnny Newton and Laramie Tunzel in particular, and how he was impressed with the way that they were able to get out there. And so he sounded very encouraged, but he also added at the end of that, we still have to see how they respond to practice today. So we'll see how those two guys respond to the practice. If all goes well, I would assume we're going to see videos, or at least, still shot photos of those guys being worked out, with DQ standing there with the training staff and kind of working them out pregame to see if they can go. And if they're wearing, a lot of times we start playing detective. If they're wearing their pants and socks and cleats, they're going to play, right? We'll see what happens. It's a good sign if they have their uniform on, right? So we'll be keeping an eye on that. He then talked about Jayden's week of practice. What did he look like? Was he going full speed? Because every clip that we see, it's warm up. So we never really get to see if he opened up and ran, because that's important. You're talking about a hamstring. Jayden's game is predicated on his ability, when things break down, to take off and run and use his legs. Just like Lamar Jackson, the ability to create, escape, and extend has to be a viable option for him to be himself. And DQ said, oh no, we pushed him hard this week to make sure that he was capable of running and opening up and being Jayden, and he passed every single test. So this was a great week of practice for him. And then he piggybacked off of that and said, Deebo went hard this week with no limitations. He feels like he's back to where he was when he was dominant the first 5 weeks of the season. That is tremendous news. The best news of the week, outside of Jayden being able to practice the entire week, because at the end of the day, we need Deebo to be Deebo. Who? Deebo. I'm going to just tuck mine in. If we are to have any chance of success in this game, we need the Deebo from the first 5 weeks, not the Debo from the past 3 weeks. So that was great to hear from DQ. He talked about cleaning up the explosives on defense, and that's a big deal going into this game because the Seahawks have been one of the best teams at creating explosive plays, especially with their receivers, really their skill position players, whether it's the tight end position or the receivers. Obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba has been a walking big play machine. The man almost has 1,900 yards. 900 yards receiving. This is with a bye week. He's still leading the NFL in receiving yards because he was so far ahead of the rest of the pack because of those explosive plays that they get every single week. And so he talked about eye discipline. He talked about tackling. He talked about technique. And these are all things that they have to be able to do to clean up explosive plays. The last time we were at home, an explosive play based off of poor tackling is what did us in. We have to make sure we clean that up because if we don't, we will suffer the same fate in this game, and it will be Jackson Smith and Jigba, and it will be nasty. It'll be canine. It'll be nasty. It'll be the rookie tight end Arroyo, and it'll be nasty, and we'll be looking for next season. We'll be looking forward to next season, essentially, right? He talked about injuries, and he really lamented on all of the injuries that have taken place and how injuries are a part of the game, but you pray that you don't have to endure as many as we have had to endure this season. You pray that you don't get hit at the one or two positions like we have. And he's like, when you get injuries, you just want a chance to overcome them, circumvent them by having one or two here sporadically. But we've been hit hard at both receiver and edge rusher this season, and it's really put us in a tough spot. But like I said at the top of the show, nobody cares. Seahawks don't give a damn about your injury situation. They got their own set of injuries that they've dealt with this season. They don't give a shit about your injuries. Nobody cares about your injuries. You got to find a way. That's the mantra moving forward. Find a way. And that's what DQ is preaching. We got to find a way to win. Overcome these injuries. He talked about the communication being better. And while it has improved and they've pared some things down to make it easier for the players to digest, DQ's like, I always feel like we can be better. I always feel like there's another step for us to get to from a communication standpoint. While we've improved, we can be better. So that's something they have to work towards and strive to be better as a communicating defense. He talked about Marshawn Lattimore, and he kind of went all the way back in the timeline with Marshawn to when they first traded for him and how tough it must have been to, change teams, come in here injured, not being able to play, having to learn a new system, yada, yada, yada. And he said he's so proud of the growth that he's seen from Marshawn. He's so, excited about what Marshawn was able to do last week. He feels like that was his best game in a year. Obviously, he's been here for a year now, as he was traded for right around this time last year. And so he's like, this is what we want from him, what we were looking for from him. Now we need him to build off of that, continue to play at that level. We know he's capable, and they're excited about him. That excitement can come tumbling down all in 1 week. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but Jackson Smith and Jigba is like that. If you haven't seen him play, he's like that. So, we'll see what happens. But again, I'm not holding my breath, right? He talked about disrupting Darnold and JSN. And that's what it all boils down to. Forget about Jackson Smith and Jigba, because I'm not sure that any of our corners, that includes Trey Amos, can cover this guy one-on-one. Now, I think Amos has the best chance to do it, but I don't know if any of our corners are equipped to deal. Like, when you see JSN, the problem with defending him is he creates so much separation. Like, defenders aren't even close a lot of times when he catches the football or when the ball's put in the air. They're not close. And if Darnold, if he has to slow down for the football to catch it or whatever, he has so much space he's created. It still ends up being a pretty routine catch for him because he's creating, 3, 4, 5 yards of separation. It's crazy when you watch him. You're like, why is he that wide open? But he's a technician as a route runner. He's so smooth, and he's faster than you think. And so he gets on you, he steps on your toes, and immediately he's by you. And then there's this burst and acceleration that, again, you don't account for. And all of a sudden, he's created 4 or 5 yards of separation. And you're like, what the F, bro? Why is he so wide open? You got to get to Darnold so that all of that extra fancy shit doesn't matter. You can have 17 yards of separation if the quarterback doesn't have a chance to get the ball to you. Remember, we talked about this when we played the Chargers. Their running back was streaking up the sideline. There wasn't a soul in sight. A soul in sight. He could have caught the football and walked the final 30 yards to the end zone against the Chargers or in that Chargers game had Justin Herbert had the time to get his running back to football. But he didn't because we harassed him on that play and ultimately sacked him. And that is what we got to do to Sam Darnold. We got to harass him. We got to get him off of his spot. We got to make him turn down his first option or not stay on it long enough to allow it to develop and disrupt the timing of him and JSN, because if you don't, it's pitch and catch for them right now. They're so locked in. They're so in sync right now. I don't know how we slow him down right now if you can't get to Sam Darnold. So he then talked about, and DQ, you could tell he wants this one bad. He understands, like, he's never going to say it. He can't say it. He's a coach. You have to keep the spirits of the team up despite the 3-game losing streak and understanding what lies ahead. He said it, though, before we went into this stretch. He said, this is a pretty daunting stretch of football. It's a pretty rough stretch. We're going to find out a lot about who we are. We're going to find out a lot about the brotherhood because this was a tough stretch of football. He wasn't lying. And it started with Dallas. Like, you're going to find out a lot about this team. And so far, we ain't shit. That's what we found out. The inability to stay healthy, but more importantly, the inability to execute, to take advantage of opportunities. We ain't shit. But we can change that narrative on Sunday night. And he talked about getting some guys back in the building. Like Dietrich Wise is back in the building now. He was at the Cowboys game. I saw him hugging Tom Brady, but he's been around. And that's a guy that lifts spirits. He talked about Dorrance having his surgery and eventually Dorrance coming back around. I would assume Austin Eckler might do the same thing. We'll see. But he talked about Will Harris in particular. He's working his way back. Like, sounds like he's off on the side field now. And he's working with the trainers on rehab. And it sounds like he could be back post-bye, right? And he talked very glowingly about Will Harris and the communication that he brought to the table and his importance and how all of a sudden it's not out of the realm of possibility that Will Harris is back in the next 3 or 4 weeks. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Noah Brown is back after the bye, which is what I've said all along. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that Terry's back before then, but I got the game against Denver after the bye circled for all of those guys to potentially return. And you could tell DQ is very optimistic that these guys can return and have an impact, but we just got to get to a point where it matters. It's like Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. Burrow can come back, whatever time he wants in December. He can come back late stages of November. There's a massive game at the end, the final weekend of November against the Ravens. It's their second meeting with them. They have them twice in a 3-week span. That second meeting is at home in Cincinnati. That could be a big time matchup, potentially first place on the line, depending on what Cincinnati does moving forward. But ultimately, Joe Burrow isn't coming back if their team is out of the mix. Same thing can be said for us. Like, if you're dead in the water, there's no reason to bring Noah Brown or any of those other guys back into the mix in the fold if you're already cooked. You got to get to a point where it makes sense for Will Harris to risk the opportunity to have a clean offseason that isn't, centered around rehabbing, but rather getting better and getting back on the field, you got decisions to make if this thing doesn't go the way you intended to. But if you win, you start being able to have those internal conversations about, when is this guy going to be ready? We may be able to get this guy back. So, he sounded really optimistic about guys potentially coming back and then having their presence in the building. We'll see if they can get it done this week. It all really hinges upon what happens on Sunday night. So with that said, we're now going to transition to the game plan. But before we do that, we're going to get a word from one of our sponsors, come back on the other side, and we'll jump into the game plan. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right, so let's get to the game plan. And this is a pretty simple one. I'm not going to talk your head off with this game plan against the Seattle Seahawks, because I can sit here and give you all these different scenarios like I've done in past weeks and give you specifics. But at its core, we got to execute. We got to go out and do the things that lead to winning. And if we don't do those things, like last week, hey, one of my keys was so specific. We need our best third down performance of the season. We got it. But all of that was negated by the fact that you couldn't execute on fourth down. You couldn't execute in critical moments. You had a football bounce off of your face mask for an interception. You did things to negate that particular key to winning. And so I'm not getting into the specifics of all of that, because you got to handle business, period. So we'll get through these keys very quickly. The first offensive key is a big one. 5 + 1 = 6. 5 + 1 = 6. We need Jayden plus Debo to equal 6. We need that combination to be what it was in weeks 1 through 5. And whether it was Marcus on the field in week 4 when Debo went off against the Falcons, or it was Jayden on the field with him in weeks 1 and 5 when he went off against the Giants and the Chargers, we need Debo Samuel to touch the end zone and be impactful in this game. He touched it in week 1. He touched it in week 2. He touched it in week 4. He touched it in week 5. He was the MVP of this team through the first 5 weeks of the season. Then the heel injury happened, and it happened, I think, in week 4, and he really wasn't the same. It got worse, right? He was excellent in week 5, but then it got worse. And then it got worse, and then he had to miss week 7. He was a decoy in week 6. He came back in week 8. He was a non-factor, and he hurt us. We need Debo to be Debo. Who? Debo. I'm going to just tuck mine in. And we need Jayden. We need demon time Jayden. We need the Jayden that is locked in from the word go. Can't throw the interception that you threw against Chicago. You got to have laser-like focus. You can't be missing receivers. That extra work with receivers this week before and after practice, we need to see it, because we can't be missing throws like we did against the Dallas Cowboys. We need the Jayden from the Chargers game. We need him to be locked in, and the guys around him have to step up. They got to make plays. If they throw the ball to Jalen Lane, you have to catch the damn football. If they throw the ball to you, Zach Ertz, you have to catch the football, and if it's on 3rd or 4th down, you got to get the damn first down. 5 + 1 = 6. I need these guys to be the best that they've been this season, because it is required, and we need it the most in week number 9. Next offensive key, play from a position of power. Be aggressive, attack, score, be a front runner. All right? Play from a position of power. All that means is I need you to get a lead. Play from out in front. We haven't shown the ability this season to be a team that is resilient enough to overcome a deficit. We've only done it once, and that was against Chicago. Well, actually twice. Chicago, but we did not win that game. But we did overcome an early deficit, 13-0 in that game. And we overcame a deficit against the Chargers and came back and won that game. But we have not been very good when we've fallen behind this season. We need to play from a position of power. Start fast, finish even faster in this game. And how you do that is you be aggressive. That same mentality, that same mindset DQ had on Monday night where he was going for it. We got to have that again. Don't bitch up because it didn't work. You got to continue with that mindset. If it's 4th and 4, if it's 4th and 3, if it's 4th and 2, you got to go. And now you got the guy under center in Jayden Daniels that can make it work. Even if you don't have the right play call, he can make it shake. You got to be aggressive. You got to attack, right? We got to keep the Seahawks on their heels. Tempo, tempo, tempo. You got to be willing to push it down the field. Get some chunk plays. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we got to be on the attack. They can't take the fight to us. We got to take the fight to them. We got to look like the offense that we thought we were going to see going into the season. We got to look like the offense that we were last season. We got to look like us. We still haven't seen this offense look like itself this season. Chargers game for a half, maybe. Bears game for a quarter, maybe. We still haven't seen this team for 4 quarters be itself. And then you got to score. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too. But you got to score points. Last week was a farce because you did all the things right until it came time to put the football where it needed to be, in the end zone, and you struggled last week. You struggled on 4th downs. You struggled on, impactful plays. You struggled to be efficient in the most critical situations. You got to score points. Next offensive key, chunky soup. Jayden has a chunky soup commercial. This is the week where you need chunk plays. You need at least 4 plays of 15 or more yards in this game. We can't be on that methodical drive bullshit because we haven't shown the ability to stay out of our way for a 13, 14 play drive. Last year, it was nothing to go on a 13, 14 play drive because we could overcome 3rd and 12. We could overcome a holding penalty on 2nd and 7. It'd be 2nd and 17. We'd get, 9 on 2nd and 17, make it 3rd and 8, and then we get 10 on 3rd and 8. Move the sticks. That's not us this year. You get a penalty on 2nd and 7, feels like we're doomed at this point. We got to get chunk plays. We had chunk plays against Kansas City last week, and we squandered them. You get those same chunk plays this week, you got to make them count. At least 4 plays of 15 or more yards. I really wanted it to be 20, but I'll take 15 yards. 4 plays or more of 15 or more yards. Need that chunky soup this week. Last offensive key, protect the Duke. Score at least 27 points. I can't stress protecting the Duke enough. It seems like a very obvious thing to state. It goes without saying. Turnover margin matters every week, yada, yada, yada. Guess what? We haven't been turnover free since week 2. We started out the season, the first 2 weeks, with no turnovers. We didn't generate any, but we didn't turn the ball over. Then Marcus Mariota fumbled against the Raiders, and all hell has broken loose. And we act as if we can't protect the damn football for an entire game and stay clean. Mariota fumbled in week 3. Week 4, Mariota throws an interception. Jayden comes back in week 5, Bill fumbles. Week 6, Jayden throws an interception, Bill fumbles, and then Jayden fumbles. right? To make matters worse, week 7, Mariota throws a pick 6. Jayden fumbles when he gets injured. Week 8, you have Mariota interception. 2 of them. Neither one of them were really, interceptions that I felt like needed to be charged to his account, but whatever. Interception, still a turnover, regardless of how they happen. We have to play a clean football game, something we haven't done since week 2. This has got to stop. Again, this ain't us. We don't turn the ball over. That's not who we were last season. That's not who we've been. That's not even who Jayden Daniels is. He doesn't turn the ball over. That game against Chicago when he fumbled, that was his first career NFL fumble that he lost. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's accounted for 2 fumbles this season. He had none last year. He's only thrown 1 interception this season. It's not like he's out here giving the football away. But Bill can't be fumbling. We can't have mistakes where balls are bouncing off of face masks and bullshit like that. We got to stay focused, and we got to protect the damn Duke. And then we got to score. 27 has been our magic number this season. 27 points. Seems like we don't know how to get more than 27. Whether we win or we lose, 27 seems to be really comfortable for us. When we've got it going offensively, we max out at 27 points. We scored 27 in the game against the Falcons. We scored 27 in the game against the Chargers. How much we scored? What, 24, I believe, against the Bears? Yeah, we lost that 25-24. And if Matt Gay had made his field goal in that game, because I think he missed one, it would have been 27 again, right? So you got to score at least 27. I'm ready for us to score like a legitimate 30-burger. The 41 that we put up against the Raiders was cool. It was aided by a punt return and all that good jazz. Look, I'm all for that. Like, I would love to have Jalen Lane atone for his sins from last week with a massive punt return in this game. I would love to see it. But ultimately, we got to score 27 points at least. We're due for a 30-piece, though. We're due for a 30-piece. Those are your offensive keys. You go to the defensive side of the football, and you start with the first defensive key. This is a big one because, as I said last week against the Chiefs, you can't give a team that isn't a prolific rush offense a two-way go when they're already a dynamic pass offense. They don't need to have another way to gash you, right? Stop the run and protect the edges. For the first time in one of his press conferences, Joe Witt Jr. absolutely singled out the fact that they can't stop the runs on the perimeter. We've been talking about this for over a year and a half now. They struggled last year on the perimeter. They've struggled this season. Remember when the run defense was killing it, I said, we still have a perimeter run game issue, right? Teams are still getting to the edges and getting more yards than I'm comfortable with. And now it's gotten progressively worse with all the injuries. Now you don't have guys athletic enough to go out there and make plays. Now you don't have guys setting a physical enough edge. And so teams are attacking our edges, and they're seeking it out now. They've smartened up. I don't know why other teams, haven't done this in the past, but now teams are actively seeking out the edge of our defense. The Bears kind of opened up Pandora's box, and now teams are like, yo, let's just attack their edges, right? Like, their interior has been really strong, but they're not athletic enough. They're not good enough to stop us from getting from point A to point B on the C and the D gaps. Let's go after them outside. Well, now we've inserted some younger guys that can fly to the football. Let's see if you can limit that, because they have a dynamic back in K9. Anytime he touches it, it could go the distance. He's the kind of back that scares the shit out of me. Last time we saw him, he had a big run, like a 40-something yard run for a touchdown. I don't want to see that again. We got to limit their run game because they are already prolific enough as is on offense as a passing unit. Let's not allow them to have the run game enter into the fray and make it that much tougher to stop them. They can't have a two-way go of it. Next defensive key. This is a big one too. All of these shits are big, to be honest with you. Harass Sam Darnold and limit explosive plays to JSN, Torrey Horton, and the tight ends. The rookie Torrey Horton is he's been dynamic for them this season. He's another guy that they like to take shots to down the field. I feel confident Trey Amos can handle him if that's the way they decide to go about it. I think Trey can take care of Torrey Horton, but he's another guy that they like to get vertical with, and he can run. It doesn't look pretty, doesn't look like he's flying, but he can move. He also had a 92 or 93 yard punt return this season for a touchdown. So he also is a bit dynamic as a punt returner. So we have to keep our eyes on him as well. But it's between him, JSN, and the two tight ends. They've got two tight ends that can hurt us. We have to be very vigilant of where these tight ends are at all times, because Darnold likes to go to these tight ends. They get chunk plays, and then obviously JSN is a guy that feeds off of that. If the tight ends are eating over the middle of the football field, now safeties start getting nosy. All of a sudden, they start falling into the trap. You know, eye candy. Oh shit, here comes the tight end up the seam. Let me squeeze that. Or here comes the tight end on a deep over route. Let me cut that, right? Let me come down and cut that. And now all of a sudden, you got JSN one-on-one on the deep post over the top of your head for 56 yards. So you have to limit the explosives. And they got a bunch of guys that can get it done. So we got to get to Sam Darnold. That's the name of the game. I talked about it at the top of the show. We got to get to Sam Darnold. You don't get to Darnold, it's going to be a long day for this defense. That shit we pulled last week when we let Mahomes stand back there for 16 seconds. You do that again, you're going to get cooked in this game. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it. You do that again, you're going to get your ass whooped. You cannot let Sam Darnold stand back there and deliver the football, or he will be surgical. He will be surgical. The next defensive key, win the red zone and third downs. I can't stress this enough. The Seahawks are going to move the football on us. This is not a good defense. They improved last week. They're still not a good unit. So they're going to have the football moved on them. The key is to not give up a bunch of touchdowns. When they get down there, it's okay to force them to kick a field goal. It's okay to force them to go for it on fourth down and get a stop. The reason you were able to take the lead and jump out on the Bears and have a chance to put them away was because you got stops on third down. You got stops in the red zone. You got a fourth down stop. They got the ball back to the offense. You have to do some of those things in this game. You're going to have to do some of those things in this game. Win in the red zone. Force a field goal attempt. The Seahawks are solid. They're not great in the red zone. Force them to kick some field goals. They're not a great third down offense. They're not we talked about this when we went behind enemy lines. They are not a good third down offense. There is a chance to get off the field on third downs. Force them to punt the football. There are opportunities for us to take advantage of. But you got to get them to those third downs, and they got to be third and, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. You'll have a chance to get off the field. But you got to do your work early, first and second down, to set you up with a third down that they might not be able to convert. I don't know how we're going to get to Darnold. That is not my job. But Joe Witt Jr. has to find a way to get to Sam Darnold. And whether that's blitzing, changing up looks, whatever, somebody's got to win. They've got to manufacture pressure. We've got to get Sam Darnold off his spot. And for the first time in a while, it feels like a while, we don't have to worry about a super mobile. Now, let's not sit here and act like Sam Darnold is Eli Manning or some quarterback who is immobile and has cement in his boots. He can move. He just isn't a runner. But he's athletic enough to get out of there and run for 7 yards on 3rd and 5. But you know where to find him. He isn't one of these quarterbacks that, man, we got to keep a spy on him. Just get to his ass. Get to him. Darnold's playing with a ton of confidence right now. I'm telling you, if you don't get to him, he will carve us up. He will carve us up. Got to get off the field on 3rd downs, which leads me to my final defensive key. Dominate specials and force at least 1 turnover and have consecutive stops at some point in the game. We got to win special teams. They have a good special teams unit as well. They play really good special teams. They've had a punt return for a touchdown over 90 yards, just like we do this season. There are a lot of similarities with how they play and how we play in terms of special teams. Very aggressive special teams unit. So we have to find a way to win that portion of the game, right? I haven't asked for a turnover in an eternity, but last week has inspired me to now ask for the ball. Ball is life once again. We got to find a way to get our hands. And again, Darnold is the type of guy that will give you an opportunity or two. Can we take advantage of it? Can we force that first and foremost? If he's got all day, he's not going to give you shit. You got to force him into making a mistake. Can we punch the ball out? Can we force a fumble and actually recover it? I don't give a shit what the turnover looks like, who commits it, where it's committed at. We need it. We need it. And then at some point in the game, doesn't matter if it's at the very beginning, doesn't matter if it's in the middle or it's at the end, we need 2 consecutive stops for this defense in a row. 2 consecutive stops. That's going to allow this team 2 possessions where Seattle didn't score and you have a chance to score, whether that means you're trying to come back in the game, that means you're trying to extend the lead that you already have, or you're trying to take the lead. Either way, 2 consecutive stops, if this offense is humming and clicking, could be the difference in the game. We saw it in the Chargers game. We were able to stack stops on top of each other, and look what happened. The team scored 27 unanswered points. But you got to get stops, which we don't seem to do. There's not a lot of punting that takes place when the Commanders play, it feels like. So that takes me to my final outcome. What do I think is going to happen in this game? I am not confident at all, but here's what I think is going to ultimately happen. The last time we played Seattle at home, Russell Wilson led them on an improbable comeback at the very end of the game. It was a very defensive game, not a lot of points, and I think they even got an onside kick on us, right? At the end, went down, scored the touchdown to tie the game, a touchdown, and had a chance to tie the game with a 2-point conversion. Kendall Fuller ends up, I think, either picking it off or knocking it away in the back of the end zone, if my memory serves me correct. Kendall Fuller made the play in the back of the end zone to preserve like a 15-13 victory or some shit. And you know what? That was the year we had like 2 or 3 17-15 wins. That was one of them. We beat the Raiders 17-15, I believe, in that season as well. I think we had like 3 games. Like, you know how uncommon a score 17-15 is? And we had like 2 or 3 games 17-15. That was one of them that year. I think it's going to be something similar to that. Not necessarily, them coming back, this, that, and the third, like they were down, but they are going to score a touchdown at the end of this game with about 8 seconds left. They're going to hurt our hearts. We're going to be up in this game 27-20. Darnold's going to take them down the field. They're going to score a touchdown, and they're not going for overtime. They go for 2 in the jugular vein. Our hearts are in our throats. And much like the New Orleans game last year, we get the stop, preserve the victory 27-26, get off the schneid, and get our season back. This one is going to be one of those heart in throats games for the duration. This won't be one of those games where you get to sit comfortably at any point. It's going to be back and forth, seesaw affair, but I think we're going to hold our own. And when it's all said and done, we're going to make just enough plays to secure the victory and get to 4-5 on the season and get our first primetime win of the season. We are now 0-3 in the primetime window this year. We asked for this. We asked for this spotlight. We asked for these opportunities. We wanted this. Well, we haven't responded well. We didn't respond against Green Bay well. We found a way to throw the game away against Chicago. And we knew we were walking into a suicide mission, essentially. It was a kamikaze mission against the Chiefs. This is an opportunity to get in the left-hand column on primetime. You don't take advantage of it, I got nothing left, man. I got nothing left. Got to have this one. Jayden, I'm talking to you for a second, my guy. We need you. Like, this is the game where you have to remind everybody that you're one of them ones. They've seen flashes this season, but it's been inconsistent because you've been in and out of the lineup. They haven't seen you ball out really on a big-time stage. I actually thought you played really well against the Chicago Bears. It was one of your better games this season, but you turned it over twice and ultimately cost us the game. So it was overshadowed by the mistakes. Nobody but us and Chargers fans saw the Chargers game. So they don't know what you did over there in Los Angeles. You have to remind everybody of who you are. Sometimes people need reminders. This is one of those times. They need a reminder. And we need you. We can't win this game without Jayden Daniels being elite. It's a damn shame how much pressure we put on this kid to be damn near perfect. But that's the roster that's been assembled. That's the current state of this roster with all the injuries. And it is what it is. But we need Jayden. We need you on Sunday night to be at your best. To be the Jayden that we know you are. Just be that guy. Everything else will work itself out. So let's get to the comment section. I got a few comments here. We'll take these and then we'll get out of here. Thank you for this super chat. Armchair gynecologist. Wow. That is one hell of a YouTube handle. Armchair gynecologist writes, 6-5 going into the bye. This season isn't over. Let's effing go. It doesn't have to be. In order to go 6-5 into the bye, you'd have to win 3 straight. That would include wins over Seattle and Detroit, 2 of the best teams in the conference. Highly unlikely, but it's not impossible. Highly unlikely, but it's not impossible. Very, very minute chance of that happening, however, with the current state of this team. But I'm not ruling anything out. I got hopium in my veins, man. So I'm here for all of the crazy, outlandish talk. Serve that shit up to me on a silver platter. I'm here for all of it. All right. But in my mind, 5-6 is more realistic, and I'm good with that. That would put us right where we need to be to strike. But hey, sign me up for some 6-5. Shit. Sign me up. That's even better. Zacchaeus McJet III. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I will be rocking my Super Bowl era Bill jersey at the sports bar Sunday night. It will be hard for Bill to have a good game, though. Look, we can't just abandon the run because they're one of the best. You notice I didn't mention Bill. I didn't talk about the run game. And this game, I don't give a shit about the run, to be honest with you. If Cliff can get his way, this game, and I'm not going to be sitting there run the ball like I normally do, because I've seen this run defense in action. I don't want to see this team running the football on early downs consistently, backing themselves up and putting themselves in a hole. If we run the ball and have any success, I'm going to be excited about that. I'm going to be somewhat surprised, but I'm going to be excited about it. It's an added benefit if it happens. It is not something that I'm going into this game expecting nor looking for. So if Cliff wants to be aggressive, and I talked about that in one of the offensive keys, be aggressive. That means attack on, and I said attack. That means throw the football on first and second downs. I'm open for all of that. Like, we got to go at these boys. Their strength is stopping the run. Well, you can't just abandon the run. You'd still have to run it. Pick your spots. Be intentional about it when you do run it. But ultimately, attack these boys. You can throw the football on the Seattle Seahawks. I've seen teams do it this season. But we got to attack. We got to be aggressive. Bill can catch, We can throw the ball. We saw him catch the ball and be effective against the Chargers. Like, it doesn't have to just be, well, Bill shouldn't be effective in this game because we shouldn't be able to run. Bill can impact the game in other ways. You can find ways to get him the football. Hold it down at that bar, man. Hold it down. 7 Descent. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. 7 Descent writes, most excited to see the Super Bowl era Diggs. We all are. Well, not all of us. Most of us are. All right. Born in 75, saw all 3 Super Bowls. Younger fans don't understand the pride it brings. Again, I didn't see all of the Super Bowls like you. You guys understand what these jerseys really mean. I understand what it means. I saw one Super Bowl, but that's the jersey that I grew up on. It's the jersey that I fell in love with. And I don't think they will ever have looked as crispy as they will on Monday night. Because, like, the old ones, like Art Monk and them wore, yeah, they were terrible. They were terrible. But they stood for something. And as the years passed, those jerseys got better and better. And by the time you got to, the Santana Moss era with Chris Cooley, Portis and company, they had refined those jerseys, and I had come to love them. They were a staple, especially when they went white on white. It was beautiful. And to not have them for, like, this is the first time we worn them since 2022, right? And, like, at their core, 2019, before they became the Washington football team in 2020. So, like, if you're a purist, we haven't worn these, like, in its pure form since 2019. But we had some semblance of them on from 2022 to 2023 when we were the football team. But ultimately, I'm excited, man. And this jersey has created buzz. Players are excited about it. The fans clearly are excited about it. And like I said, you can't fake this kind of juice. There's going to be real juice in the atmosphere on Sunday night. They can't waste this. They have to take advantage of the energy that's going to be in that building. With the jerseys on, with Art Monk's halftime ceremony, there's going to be a lot of juice in that building, and they got to extract every ounce of that and use it as fuel to help them win this football game. I'm excited to see them as well. They're going to be, and then you take it a step further. Under the Sunday night football lights, they're going to be even cleaner. And then you put them up against a Seattle jersey that is just beautiful as well. It's going to be a really aesthetically pleasing game. It really is. But we got to win. At the end of the day, we got to win this game. 7%. He says, to see 5 in them will be a proud moment. And they're so clean. That Daniels on the back. And the lettering is the best I've ever seen it, because, the Moss era, the letters were tiny. They were like Moss's name was like this big on the back of the jersey. They actually went back to the way they were back in the 80s when we actually won with them. Because if they continued to refine the jersey, they made the name smaller, right? Moss's name took up that much space. Cooley's name took up that much space. Like the old jerseys, the lettering was huge, right? the Daniels it's beautiful. They really Nike really did a great job with these. I'm excited. Win for 81 and keep the season alive, or it's curtains. That's the perfect way to sum up what this game represents. Do it for the season, do it for the fans, do it for the win, but more importantly, do it for art. Do it for art. So that's what needs to happen. And if you don't, the season's done, right? Like there's no other way to explain it. That's it in a nutshell, right? So ultimately, that's the gist of the message, right? Like that's the overarching theme. Win or pack it up. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. Last time you'll see me before this game. Well, you'll see me one more time for the skill game. I'll make some picks going into that game, but ultimately, we got to have it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And again, everything, we're defying the odds here. Everything suggests that we're supposed to lose this game. But the one wild card that we have in our back pocket that gives us a shot every single week when he plays is Jayden Daniels. He's going to be on the field, and that means we got a shot. That means we got a shot. Now we just got to go out, take our shot, and not miss. You win this game, it changes everything. You lose this game, and everything's lost. So there you have it. It's really simple. Win this one for the season. Win this one for us. Win this one for art. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. God bless. Good night.